good evening, everyone. Dave Wilson of the Ring of Hire Show. How you doing, Amy?
I'm great. How are you?
I know this is our favorite show, isn't it?
It is.
We always like doing this show and giving back. And tonight we got Chris Williams, and there goes Chris. Okay, let's see if he comes back on. There he is. We got him. Yeah, there we go. Chris did that on. Oh, there goes his camera. You watch. Let's see. We're gonna hope that we get this right. Amy, say something, right?
Yeah. Let's hope.
Yeah, let's hope. So he's gonna sign back on here, but we got Chris Williams tonight from in Charlotte. There he is. There we go. There we go. Chris, you did that on purpose, right?
I didn't even touch it this time.
All right, good. But I was telling everybody we got Chris from over in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we're going to give him an interview tonight. But we'll be right back after this video. Everything's working and he's back. So good. Hey, Chris, I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. When Amy reached out and we did, and all of us, and to get you on the show, looking for work, whenever you ask somebody, hey, you want to come and do a live interview on LinkedIn, you usually ask Amy, we're always like, well, Chris was like, I'll do it.
Absolutely.
Well, given his background, I can see that he's definitely comfortable, and I like this. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, I was looking at your resume tonight too, and I was like, wow. I said, you got definitely some great skills, and my record's still 8 out of 32 people from doing a show to get them a job. So that's not too bad. 32 shows, 8
not
people.
Bad.
But Amy, we still got to get our first big one. We got to get our first big one since I brought Amy on now. So I said we need that one person to do that success story and have you back. But Chris, I want to start right out tonight, and with the questions is if you could just tell us about yourself, your professional background, and what led to where you are.
Yeah, so my professional background really has been primarily in the fintech space. Started early in financial services, way back in 2006, 7-ish time frame. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and interesting enough story. The way I kind of got my career started was a manager of mine. I was really kind of like my first role was like a glorified admin role. I was an admin for the president, who's now the president of a SunTrust Bank. I actually used to work for him as an admin. And what was interesting was I'm learning all the things I can about community banking at the time. If you remember, having a footprint all across the country was the thing in financial services. And the lady I worked for, I'll never forget, we've spent 2.5 months. He's got executives coming into town from all across the country. At that time, most of financial services headquarters was in San Francisco. They're all coming to Charlotte for an offsite. I've been tasked with working on the PowerPoint. If you remember Death by PowerPoint, we were that team. Everything was by PowerPoint. And I just remember 2 weeks before the actual presentation, my manager who was going to do the presentation got laryngitis. Could not do the presentation. I had put together this 15-slide piece on the footprint, some of the technological changes we were making, and then also we're in the middle of an acquisition.
Right.
And so there was some conversations around what was going to happen with those acquisitions and how we were going to make the conversations work with our broker-dealers. It was an insurance acquisition, so how a broker-dealer is going to interact with the systems that we had and whole 9 yards. She can't talk at all. She taps me on the shoulder and goes, Chris, you're it. I can't do this. You know the presentation. I'm like, no, I don't. So Long story short, I sweated through an hour of a presentation, sweated through my jacket. Thankfully, I got it done. But the woman who actually was in that room was the head of L&D,
Oh,
of
wow.
learning and development, and she saw me and she said, "Hey, I really would like to talk to you." And so I ended up in L&D about 2 years into my
Nice.
career, and that's where my career took off. I found I had a knack for human behavior and org psychology, and that really paired well when you're starting talking about how do you train large amounts of people, even executives, because I've trained executives throughout my
Right.
career, and how do you do that in a way that it sticks. And I'm also a curious person, and so I was the guy that asked a lot of questions,
Right.
and as a result, that really framed the way I went about my career. So I worked in L&D for several years. I went from there, ended up working in business transformation. And so I was a senior business transformation consultant, and all that simply meant was that across the enterprise, large scale projects,
Right.
multifaceted, multi complex, I was the guy sent in, and I'm dealing with people, processes, and systems. And that's been my
Nice.
world for 15 years.
That's
2024,
amazing
my
how that
entire team was
happened.
laid off,
Yeah.
and that's the reason why I'm here.
That's amazing. I mean, just how things happen just like that. You know,
Yeah.
Yep.
you're at the
Well,
right place, the right time. And that's why I always say about the show too. I'm like, oh, come on. All it takes, I always say, is one hiring manager to see that person.
yeah.
You know,
That's
because
right.
it's not the resume. It's not Chris Williams, looking at it just like you say, Amy. Remember the yes and the no file.
Yes,
Yes, no.
absolutely.
It's a
You got to
real
get in the yes
person.
pile
Yeah, and
first.
that's it.
Yes.
That's what I
Yes.
like. So, Amy, you want the next one there?
Yes, Chris, thank you for that. That's quite insightful and
Love it.
definitely something that you'll remember for the rest of your life. So, what kind of roles and job titles or industry are you targeting?
So for me, I've been in transformation, reorgs, org design, you name it, I've done it across my experience. Recently, I was just director of operations for a media relations company that managed a lot of the kind of sales engines and deal engines for family offices, hedge funds, private equity firms, you name it. And what I loved about my director of operations role was I'm a hands-on strategy person.
Yeah, that's the way I am.
And what I mean by that is a lot of times you have maybe just a strategy person, right? They can see a thing and they kind of tell you, but they can't really give you the X's and O's. They don't really talk to the people who actually do the work.
Right.
I've across my time inside of financial services, I was also the person that knew how to translate technical information to business outcomes and also back and forth. And so, what I really loved about my directive operations role is that I got to do that. So, I'm always looking for directive operations roles, fractional opportunities, VP roles in that sense.
Is it a
Um,
certain
tra-
field, Chris? Is it a certain field for that area or what? If that just it's so broad.
yeah, I would definitely say technology firms, um, fintech companies, and small to medium sized businesses. Because what happens when you're in a growth phase of your company, anywhere probably between 25 million up, what happens is eventually you get to a point where you've basically done all you can do and you need the operational system to now
Right.
be functional enough to be repeatable. And the owner typically doesn't have the time to stay in his business. He needs to be able to work on his business. Now it's time to install an operator who really understands systems thinking and
Right.
knows how to move things and people. And so that's typically where I come into play.
Okay. All right. That's like I said, you don't realize there's so much behind the scenes, like on a
Um,
job. Like you don't, that's why I love this show about talking to him because you don't know in that field. Am I familiar with it? No, not really. But you don't realize there's so much behind it. It's just all comes down to like the processes. That's what I like. Like Amy, you're good at that. You like to figure things out,
he's
right?
talking my language. I everything he's saying, I'm loving this.
Yeah. Well, as soon as we get him back, let's see if he comes back on
Right?
the show. There he goes. He's back on. Let's see. Add to the scene. Here he comes. I think Chris is doing this on purpose, but I think he'll sign back on here. Maybe there's something with a camera or something. But no, like I said, I think it's so interesting. There he goes. We keep saying, well, he's probably doing that on purpose, but no, we're just saying how doing it back like that behind everything. Do you prefer like remote, Chris, on site, hybrid? Are you open to contract work, anything like that?
Yeah, I'm open to contract work. I realize that with companies today, I think being on site is better.
Right,
There's something to be said about you can get more work done when you're efficient more in person because there's a lot of nuance to the human interaction in
right,
person. I have an L&D background, so I've studied a lot of this stuff, and rapport, team building, the ability to be able to communicate. A
Right.
lot of times has a lot to do with also just familiarity and how do you get comfortable with another human. You've got to actually invest time.
That's
So
in
I
your
believe
job
that
field though, right? That's more in your
that's
job
it.
field because of that. How else would you that's what I was thinking for that job titles. I mean,
Yeah.
how would you do that remote, right?
Yeah. Eventually you can move to remote, but I think you need to have a strong team first. And I think a lot of times the best way that happens, you got to put time together. It's no different than a regular relationship.
Right, on
Yeah.
that part like that. So
Yeah.
remote, on-site, you're open to pretty much even on-site, it sounds like hybrid,
Yep.
too?
I
Awesome, I love it.
traveled. At one point in my career, I was traveling almost 80% of my time. And
A lot.
that was because I was visiting sites. I worked directly with managers. I would, we used to do these training programs. I was having these new hire training programs. And eventually what I found out was we were having like this 60% turnover rate.
Right,
And it frustrated me to no end. And by the time, some people wanted to do something about it, I'm the guy, I'm like, I want to figure this out because I want to reduce the turnover rate. And
right.
it was very simple things that I found out, being in front of the managers, being on the floor,
Oh,
talking to
that sounds
people.
familiar.
And once I understood that, it was like, oh, we could reduce this. And I got it down from 60% down to about, I think the lowest I got it down to where I was right under 50%. And that
Nice.
was a huge change because now people could start to move their career and see a path because they didn't just feel like they were just churning and burning people. They could actually
Right.
develop leaders throughout the company.
Mhm.
Well, that's like now that's my ballpark too, Amy. I'm just like, wow, it's like identically what he's saying. We were just talking about before the show, the same thing, and I said that's awesome.
Right.
Amy,
Yep. All right. So, what are your top two accomplishments that you're especially proud of?
Man, I would definitely say my first one that I can say I'm completely proud of is we had a transformation initiative that within financial services at the time, we were moving the entire organization from project management focus to agile framework focused. And at the time, people were talking about it. We couldn't get any funding internally to make it happen, but it just so happened there was a project that was falling apart. They had spent millions of dollars on this software install. It was going absolutely nowhere,
right,
and my manager and I got together and we reached out to that executive leader and said, "Hey, would you let us take on this project and see if we could salvage it?" And they said, "Hey, if you could salvage it, here you could have it." So of course they give you the trash until you can turn it into something, right?
right,
And we were able to take that project and not only get our engineering teams, our IT folks, and our business operations to be aligned. I built a cross-functional team who was closest to the work. I taught them agile basics without ever using the words agile, user stories. I always tell people stop using buzzwords. Use things that people understand,
Yep.
right,
right? And so I built an entire 4-day workshop, built a cross-functional team. Not only were they up and running and had more rapport and were able to actually produce faster, eventually the program that I built got instituted enterprise wide. And then eventually I was doing what we call train the trainers. And I was training trainers, it specifically within HR, auto lending, wealth, and different places. And then
right.
I end up building out an entire program that I created just for managers who had people in the agile space because they didn't know how to manage people who they didn't really have, in a sense, the direct line to them every single day to understand their work.
That's got to
So
be
I taught
rewarding
managers
though.
how to do that.
Yeah, that's got to be rewarding though when you see your work like that. All the time
Absolutely.
that you do your job, and when you see it all come together, that's when you
Yep.
sit back and say, you know what, I did it. On stuff like that, and I really like that.
Yeah.
Amy,
Yeah. My
So, what's
second
your
one I would say was the my recent one, director of operations. Got hired by a CEO. He spent 80% of the time in his work and he couldn't scale. And he was the bottleneck and he admitted it. Hired me as director of operations. In about a year and a half, he was from 80% down to 38% of his time in the work because I built in the people processes and the systems so we
nice,
could actually scale. So then he had the building blocks to go.
nice.
okay?
All right.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I like that. That, like I said, I love to see your work when the work comes together. Chris, what do you feel your three core strengths are?
I'm very inquisitive. I'm calm under pressure and I'm also dependable.
Nice. I like the dependable. I like that. That's one of the biggest things. But no, I like that. I don't have
All
any. That
right.
was sharp.
If we were to ask your colleagues to describe you, what would they say?
Um, I think they would say a couple of things. I'm inquisitive. That's it. They would definitely say that. I ask a lot of questions, and I don't do them to be irritating. I do it because I think one of the things that people don't do is we don't know how to ask the best question. We don't ask the next question. We ask a lot
Right.
of surface questions, and then we don't actually solve the real problem. And so they would say I definitely ask questions. I also I would say that they would definitely tell you I love to communicate to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Nice.
And I also love to win. And wins for me is not necessarily just about being competitive,
Right.
but if I can win, there's been times where I was working with a project manager who everybody told me they're just so difficult to work with. They never want to help. They want to be in their own bubble, and then they end up being my best friend, right?
Right.
And so that's a win to me that I want to ally as it comes to getting work done. That I could win the vendor over because maybe they didn't see eye to eye, and then when I step in, we figured it out, right? So
Right.
I love to win on the human culture side of business just as much as dollars and cents in revenue.
That's why I like this show, Amy, because there
Yeah,
again, what he's saying, you can't get it in the resume. You know what I mean?
right.
It's what you're saying is that's what I like when he's talking like that. It's just coming right out. I love that. I like to win. I've never heard somebody say that. I like it.
Right. And
And it, you know,
it's about the approach and delivery, and that is one thing that is so important. And you got to treat everybody differently. And that is one thing that I always push in my training classes, that you got to treat everybody differently.
mhm,
Everybody has to be treated with
yeah,
respect, but everybody is different. So you've got to approach them a little bit differently. And all the managers that I've ever worked with, I've been able to, talk to them at a level that we both agree on, and that it works for us. But I never talk to the five different people the exact same way, because they're all five are different. So,
everybody's
Chris,
different.
I definitely appreciated the way that you articulated that.
Yeah. Chris, what kind of task or projects energize you the most?
Um, I would say the ones that are almost like a Rubik's cube. They've already put the spaghetti together in the business. The business has been growing, maybe on
Right.
accident, and now it's just how do we get this thing to scale? Those I love. I also love opportunities where you're trying to do a better job at storytelling. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges small to medium sized companies have is
Right.
they don't know how to tell a better story because most of us are still using our old brains of how media works, how storytelling works, the way we should be communicating what we do.
Right.
And then when we see somebody kind of break out of the norm in our industry, whatever your industry is, then we go, that was different. Why would I do that? And they're like, well, no, you don't understand. Storytelling creates attention. If you can get the attention where you want it to go, then you can actually grow a business. And so, I've talked to different companies who, from a marketing standpoint, I've done some marketing projects even after I was laid off in 24, and I've always been enamored with storytelling because how you tell the story of what's happening internally to your executive is
Right.
just as important as how you tell the story to the buyer, and it's just as important as how you tell the story to your teammates, right? Like
Right.
it's all storytelling. And I think companies struggle massively in this fast paced world where they think a, a system will tell my story better. It's like, no, you actually have to tell your story better because if you don't own your story,
Right.
something or somebody else will. And whatever
Mhm.
they think, that is the truth. And you
I
can't
love
do
it.
nothing about it if you're not willing to step up and tell your story.
I love it. No, that's
Well
a great
said. Well
answer.
said.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that one just, I really like that one. I like that question.
Are there any technical or soft skills that you've mastered that set you apart?
Oh, um,
He's like, I got that one. There you go.
I would definitely say I took a we had the opportunity to we flew to San Francisco for a pro side change management training one time. And I loved my change management course because, again, I love human behavior and org psychology.
Right.
I have tons of books on human behavior and how organizations change. And I also love history. So for me, just being a student of businesses and systems, um, I've also, I know a lot of, business intelligence tools because I've had to use them throughout my career.
Right.
I understand certain operating systems. Small companies are using everything from EOS, which I'm familiar with, all the way to, they're using their own, internal built-in CRMs, right? The customer relationship management tools, all the way to, how they're using AI to improve their workflows. Claude, to me, Claude Code has been one of the most recent ones that I've absolutely enjoyed leveraging because
Right.
I think for the majority of people and companies, I don't think they're using it the best way possible right now. I think people are thinking of it more of as a outcome thing, and they're not understanding the power that it could actually do to help a person do their job better. And you could retain the person and use the AI tool at the
Right.
same time. I fundamentally believe that, and I've been able to do that in my career.
Does AI play a big part now in your type of work? Is it going to be? I mean, definitely, right? With AI, I mean, with everything coming out, is it going to be a blessing or is it going to, everybody says losing jobs, taking jobs. That's another
Yeah.
conversation. But do you see that really coming into your work?
Um, I'm kind of a contrarian in this. I don't think it's about the fact that it's taking a job.
Right.
You know what I do? I actually look at AI as the ability for you to actually do the job you got hired for.
Right. Okay.
For example,
That's different.
I think a person who's running marketing or who's managing their the internal CRM or the person that is an engineer doing their job. I think when you got hired and you got that whatever that title is, I think most of the administrative, the repetitive things, the stuff that becomes
Yeah.
mundane in your job, you're bored with it.
Right.
Now there's a tool that comes along that allows you to actually get that stuff done faster so you
Right.
could actually do your job. I think the disconnect is that companies made a knee-jerk reaction and got rid of a lot of really great talent
Right.
thinking, well, the AI will just replace them. And it's like, it does not replace it,
Right.
right?
I
Just
agree.
because, Henry Ford asked, what do people want more? And they said faster horses. And he's like, that's not the answer, right?
Right.
The answer is you teach people how to use the tool to do the job.
To do the
And
job.
then
I like
you
that.
actually incentivize you. I think that's the big conversation right now. I think nobody's talking about this.
Right.
I did a huge HR project for about 6 years in fintech. HR has to fundamentally change because we're using outdated ways to evaluate people, but also using new tools in order to use the same outdated ways. We're doing it wrong.
Okay. That's
And
different.
so I think what has to happen is we have to evaluate people and upskill people at the same exact time.
Right.
And the
I
best
like
way
that.
to do that is to allow a tool to be used for your job, controlled environments, which is,
Right.
is, a, is a huge thing right now, but do that in a way that allows the person to still be able to do their job. But now it frees them up from the mundane and it actually allows them to deliver higher
Okay.
quality output. And I think that's what's needed in today's world.
I like that. No, I like that answer. That's so
Thanks.
true. And like I said, I'm not which direction it's going right now for in different fields. That's the thing. So, Amy,
So how do you approach challenges or problem solving at work?
I approach them with a curious mind and a collective brain. I do not believe that one person can solve all. Well, let's put it this way: some people approach it where one brain solves all the problems because they got the big title. I've never been scared of a big title, and the title does not impress me.
that's
What
a great.
what
I like
math?
how he said that. That is so
Yeah,
true. I
it
think I
doesn't
do that
impress
as I
me.
got older. I think as I got older, but that comes with experience. I think that comes
It
with
does.
experience.
I think what is better is you solve problems. Number one, by getting the people closest to the work to answer the problem, to actually tell you what the problem. If you're a leader, the problem is actually probably several layers down. You
Right.
don't see it every day. You just see the impact numbers. You see revenue. You see leakage. You see those things. But there's somebody working on that. And I think if you spent more time asking the person than just assuming with the collective people in the ivory tower,
Right.
you could make better quality solutions because people want. the majority of people going to work want to do a good job and they want to solve problems,
Mhm.
Right.
but they're being told how to solve it instead of being asked how to solve it. And so I
I'm gonna
think
say that one
input
over and
into
over. I mean, I
solutions
like
is
that.
important.
My brain goes when you're saying stuff, I'm thinking, wow, I
Yeah.
like that, because it's so true. The way you just said that, it does. I mean, do they know what the problem is? You ask. I get that. I love it. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when you ask a VP and you're telling them what's going on, they're very quick to dismiss it as
Yep.
a personnel problem, or you're not on board. That you just don't want to follow procedure, and I think that is also fundamentally an issue. But
Yeah.
if some VPs would just get into the weeds a little bit, don't have to do that job day in and day out, but understand what that job is from birth to death, it to at least understand it. Not saying you have to
Yeah.
do that every day because that's not why you're hired, but
Right.
at least understand the steps. And then when people are talking, just listen instead of dismissing. So
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
The way you do that is better storytelling to executives. And this is one of my tricks, and this has worked for anybody. Take this and use this at your job tomorrow. What I always tell people is executives move by data driven decisions.
Yeah.
So go get the data from the people on the floor closest to the work and then show them by doing it whatever way we're doing it, we are losing X amount, X, Y, and Z amount of money. When you
Right.
say it that way, they go, oh, wait a minute. So there's a better way to do this? Yes, there's a better way. And by the
Yeah.
way, Sally, Craig, and Melvin have figured it out. And
Right.
here's their solution. When you do that, now they have to listen because you one of the things that is very difficult for people is you can't unhear or unsee a truth.
Right.
And so an executive, once they've heard how much money is being lost by not making this change or where the revenue is leaking because we haven't improved this area of our process or our system, now they're
Right.
like, uh-oh, well, what's the solution? Well, I've already talked to the team. Here's what they propose, and they would like to try it out for the next 3 months, and let's see if that solves the problem. Now, all of a sudden, they can't act like they didn't hear that, right? Now, if they dismiss
right,
it from that point, well, then we know what that problem is. That's just a
Yeah. Not when you put them in
leader
front
who's
of it.
not aware, right?
yeah,
I got
nice,
one
well said.
more. I got one more for Amy to ask you, Chris. And again, I want to thank you.
Sure.
This is great. And please, anybody out there, that's watching, shares a video, just reach right out to Chris. If you can't get a hold of Chris, get a hold of Amy or myself, and we'll get you in there because our goal is to put Chris out here tonight. And it takes a lot to come on the show and answer those questions like that. And we appreciate it. And I always like to give Amy the last question. This is a really good one. I like it.
Okay.
All right, Chris, why should a company hire you?
I would say a company should hire me because I'm passionate about solving problems. The other thing that I love to do is I love making the light come on for people. I think right now with a lot of culture at work because of the way the economy is, because of different things that are going on, I think one of the best
Right.
things that a company can do is improve their culture. And
Mhm.
so the way you do that is you improve the quality of the work that they're doing. And the reason why you should hire me is because those are the things that I focus on. Doing a job is not just going to work and clocking in and clocking out. It's
Right.
how the job is done. It's what tools you're giving people to get it done. It's what clarity are you giving people. I think from an operation standpoint, companies can be much healthier if you actually put in people in place who
Right.
actually care about the people who are working. I'm that guy. Um, I'm also the kind of person that I love to have fun, but I also love to win. And I
Right.
think winning the hearts and minds of companies, right, of people working at companies right now is just as important as the bottom line revenue. And I think when you win the hearts and minds, you'll definitely watch your revenue increase. And I'm that guy to make it happen.
Love it. That's all right,
Well
Amy. I
done,
can't
well
touch that
done.
one. That was really. I love it. I love that
Yeah,
ringing again, and I just like that energy that you have for that. I can see you take your work seriously. You're not just going to go in there. You're going to go in there and make a change. I guess in that type of field, again, I'm trying to learn what you do, and the job titles I'm not as familiar with, but everything it's almost the same as all the other types of work that we do, Amy. The same. It's all
he's
the same concept.
talking my language.
Yeah. I mean,
This is a good conversation.
yeah, I thought it was really good. So again, Chris, if you could just one more time, could you put the name titles out there again that you're looking for? I know you're open to a lot, but if you could just let us know and then
Sure.
we'll end it from there.
Sure, director of operations role, marketing director, uh, VP of operations, those types of roles. And I'm, open to even fractional work as well, because I realize some companies are in different places. But if you're a company that's, small to mid market or a large corporation, consulting companies, firms, hey, I'm always willing to step in and help out as well. Those are the roles.
Okay. Amy, you have anything else? I think I'm pretty
No,
good.
Chris,
I
thank
loved
you
it.
so much. Really appreciate you coming on, and you've got a lot to offer a company. So hopefully, you get picked up by
Yeah.
somebody pretty quickly.
Now I got to
Well,
start
I thank you
tagging.
guys for this platform. Thank you guys for even what you're doing, because this is bold. And I think right now, this is a platform that's needed. So thank you for everything that you guys are providing.
No, that's what we like doing it for. I mean, our goal is just like I said, pay it forward. Because I always told Amy, one day if I need it, or even here, we can sit on here for 24 hours. And I'm going to say, until you hire me, I'll get off air. Just stay online to get a job. But like I
That's
said,
right.
we really appreciate it. And well, I think he's off. We'll see. There he goes. But hey, you only snuck out like 2-3 times today. So on that note,
I
everybody.
know.
Yeah. So Chris, we're going to talk to you after this video again, and I'll talk to you soon.
Sure.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.